have three very interesting people over here, three people from different backgrounds, different companies who interact with technology in three different ways. Sundar is very deep into AI, deep learning, etc., has extensive experience on the cloud. On the other hand, Varun is very involved with the e-commerce companies, or rather media publishing related stuff, develops custom solutions for these companies. Now these custom solutions are very front-facing. What is front-facing and also not very front-facing is what Vivek does. Vivek analyzes images using computer vision, applies AI on top of it, and links it deeply with an e-commerce platform. And all these three have one thread in common. Their reliance on technology, their reliance on cloud, their reliance on deep understanding of the web to enable their businesses to succeed, to enable their businesses to scale. Most technology guys, they get so involved with the various tools and trinkets that we get, like I have been one of them, that we forget that technology is an enabler, something that we use to scale businesses. And that's where we'll start our discussion with, and we'll see how these three perspectives converge and maybe diverge through this entire thing. I'll start with Vivek. You take technology decisions day in and day out. Now these technology decisions are primarily based on AI, but they integrate with various different platforms. When you're integrating with different platforms, how do you boil down or narrow down on your technology choices? And how do these choices exactly impact your business? Because one technology choice with a particular client is not going to work for another, and yours is a platform that needs to serve everyone.
Ours is a SaaS platform, so we have one fixed platform and it works for all the clients. But in terms of technology decisions, so I mainly consider three things to be primary when deciding a technology. One is what is going to cost me to get my entire team ready for that particular technology, as in like time to get the team ready for that. And another thing I take into consideration is what is the talent pool available out there. If I'm going to make a certain technology decision, am I able to hire more people for that particular technology or not? And third thing is what's the community or the support system around that technology. If it's not that mature enough, I would think twice before jumping into that technology.
Interesting, but does this choice also depend upon how your business needs to grow in the future? You are at a very nascent stage.
Yes.
There is one single point of agenda, which is understand an image, identify objects, and link them in a way where people can buy them.
Yes.
If you have to grow beyond that, if your business needs to go into multiple dimensions, does that factor in?
Yes, that definitely factors in. So I just want to update one thing, as in like currently we do this thing, and again this is packaged in multiple ways.
Right.
So we sit in the customer's website also, on their Instagram, on their email campaigns. So we sit on multiple places.
Brilliant. Varun, on the other hand, you work with companies which are not media, which are not tech savvy, media companies, and you develop custom solutions for them. Is there a common thread that goes in those technologies, or is it very focused on each media house and their need to do business?
See, for the media industry, what happens is they want the editors are not tech savvy. Right? The editing has to be very simple. Right? As soon as they put a post, they put a text, image, it should be displayed instantly. Right? So this is what they want. Right? Their editors are very good writers, but they are not tech savvy. So the key role that we play in is that the editors should get the minimal things that they have to configure, get the story ready to be displayed to the public instantly, right? Cost has to be reduced, and handle as many page views as possible without scaling the infrastructure, right? So when we say scale the infrastructure, any story can go viral at any time in news. right? So what happens is, let's say a story comes for that any bomb blast happens or anything, right? Which is impacting Indian economy or anything, right? It goes viral in media, right? Automatically the scaling kicks in, right? Number of page views increases, number of users increases, right? The scaling happens.
Right.
But the clients are very adamant that, okay, I am going to pay a certain amount, right? So the scaling has to be in that limits, right? So we have to manage lots of things together, and it is separate for each and every client. Some clients are willing to pay additional for servers. Some clients are willing to pay lesser for development, right? Some clients are good with servers that, okay, you buy any server you want, right? I will reduce the technology cost, right? So it depends on clients, how the scaling, how the infra, how entire bit works.
Right. Performance or extracting maximum out of your servers would be your primary concern out here.
Yes, the primary concern is the speed, right? As soon as means in media industry, website has to open in less than 3 seconds. That is their main requirement, right? Even if the images doesn't load, doesn't matter, right? But my client, we work in such a way that, okay, within 3 seconds, images plus text, everything should load up, right? So we have caching layer, we have multiple web servers that can serve traffic, multiple databases, master slave, lots of things we have configured, right? But this keeps on changing as and when the client requirement changes, right?
Your mention of the news thing and bomb blast reminded me of the London bombing more than a decade back. I was at Yahoo and Yahoo News had to rewire the way we served pages overnight just so that we could serve those news out quickly, fast, and this was pre-cloud. So there was no scale up, scale down, and we had to completely rewire our system. How does cloud help you do that? How do you scale, auto scale in this particular scenario?
Most of these clients, right, that we support right now, they are using WordPress technology, right? So WordPress is not very keen on scaling part, right? Unless and until you are on WordPress.com, right? With developer edition of WordPress, right, you have to scale automatically. And WordPress has a limitation that the images are supposed to be stored on one particular drive before you can scale it automatically, right? So that is a limitation that we overcame before the era of Spaces with DigitalOcean, right? So we had our own object storage, which we connected to a EC2 instance, right? And we directly connected that EC2 instance with multiple servers with NFS, and we were able to scale the web servers as and when we require, right? Because web servers are the things that are going to serve the content, right? But images are going to remain the same. Right? So that is how we manage the scaling, and we use the Slack channels that are provided by DigitalOcean, and it automatically kicks in the scaling.
Interesting. Something that should be that we should talk about more later, about the Slack channels and how do you use them for scaling. Talking about cloud, Soundar, you have the most extensive experience out here on cloud, at least within the panel. I don't know about the audience, but yeah. How do you choose your cloud infrastructure? There's DigitalOcean, there is AWS, there is the Google Cloud.
Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty interesting question, right? As a startup, you're like flooded with ocean of
Choices.
These are choices, right? And you'll have to make the right choice, and that has to stick on to you for your business for a long time. You cannot keep changing your decisions, right? So there has to be some kind of practical decisions that go into actually making a choice. So fundamentally, a startup needs to ask some of these basic questions within themselves, right? To do a proper introspection on whether they're on the right track or not. The first thing would be like, do I really need to be on the cloud, right? That's the first question. It should not be like everyone is on the cloud and even I need to be on a cloud, right? I mean, there's no relevance in someone who doesn't need to be on the cloud to be on the cloud, right? Just because the whole world is moving towards the cloud, I need to be on the cloud. Doesn't make sense. And the second thing is that what are you trying to achieve? What are the capabilities that you're looking at from the cloud, right? That actually centers around the whole choice. Like you need specialized offerings or value-added services that are already there, someone has built and you want to leverage that. So that also forms a primary criteria for choosing a cloud, right? So you cannot choose a simple cloud provider in a case where you need a lot of ecosystem to be present along with your solution being deployed, right? So once you center around it, you introspect, you get to know a lot about like what I need exactly, right? What I need to leverage. As a startup, you need to learn to leverage. That's the key thing in your growth, right? And all the speakers have been talking about agility, right? A reliable agility is what you need, right? So coming from that aspect, I mean, the speakers here basically spoke about a lot of those aspects as well, about disaster and availability and your customers. So essentially, you are building your cloud for your customers, right? So you need to center your decisions around that, right? So keeping that in mind, so like to give a trusted solution to your customer, what is important? So you need to have a reliable cloud platform. Your service has to be reliable, right? Does your cloud provider actually give a strong SLA around most of the services that he's offering, right? The second thing is that does he have proper backup and recovery options? Is he operating across the globe? Does he have multi-data center operations? And the most critical thing for us was around having proper knowledge base on the cloud, right? So if you take most of the top cloud providers today, any simple information is like so cryptic. I'll have to actually go around 20, 30 pages to get the information that I need, right? That's going to create a huge hindrance for me to grow, and my agility is gone, right? If I have to sit and look at so much of information to get some basic thing out, it's not going to happen, right? And I would want to actually bring out some of our good experiences with DigitalOcean as well. It's not like marketing, but I would genuinely bring out of those options, right? So
they're very happy.
Yeah. So again, looking at the other aspect is about cost, right? That's another critical thing. I mean, today, I mean, initially there were just handful of providers, but today it is like every other street has a cloud provider. Even my friend in Chennai has started a data center operation, right? So, I mean, cost has to be another factor because we are running on limited capital, and that's another major concern that we have. And other thing is scaling, right? So the whole concept of today is about talking on startup scaling. So does the cloud provider make your life easy by providing you the right set of apparatus for scaling, right? Does he give you the required automation in place to get you to scale, right? As you grow, your business grows, the cloud provider has to provide you that backbone for you to grow, right? The network, the kind of infrastructure they have, the kind of specialized hardware. So looking at coming from an AI perspective, right? So we need a lot of GPU kind of infrastructure. Do they have that kind of thing? So once I move into more complex algorithms, I need specialized hardware. Does your cloud provider offer that, right? So all these considerations have to come in. You just cannot jump in. You got free credits from NASCOM and you want to jump on it and use it. I mean, it is good, but making a cognitive decision is always required. And coming back to giving our experience on DigitalOcean, right? The day one we started using it, I mean, it has been so simple. I know what is where, right? I just click the system, I mean, the VM is up. I know what to do if I'm stuck with actually deploying a product or a stack there. There's a hell lot of information material readily available, right? It's just, they have kind of tailored it in a very beautiful way, and the navigation is awesome. And I can scale beautifully. They've integrated a bunch of these automation tools like Chef, this Puppet, Kubernetes. So it's kind of made our lives really easy for scaling, and that's something that I look at. So DigitalOcean is kind of a role model, and they're getting there. They're pretty simple, and they're not having much of this high feature stuff on their cloud, but I think they are eventually getting there. So that simplicity and the reliability is something that I look for. Yeah.
If you guys want to counter him on anything, right, please go ahead. He's all yours.
I don't think anyone will have a point there. I mean, everyone, we love
I'm going to jump out of my moderator skin and jump into the panelist skin now. Just join the gang. As part of my current avatar, I work closely with Kalari, K-Start, portfolio companies, helping them take technology product decisions. And this is one of the things that keeps coming up every single time. What infrastructure provider to choose, which services to choose, and which to build out on your own. And my only advice in this case is don't fall in love with your infrastructure provider. It's not religious. Make sure you're not so tightly integrated that you cannot make the right decision just because you're tightly integrated. Engage. Don't just use your service provider, but engage with them. They know their services better than you would know from reading the documentation. They can get you to reduce your infrastructure cost by about 25% if you just engage with them, talk to them. And that would help.
Yeah, just want to add one more point there, right? So the other part that I kind of missed out was the customer support, right? So anytime I actually mail these guys, there's an immediate response.
Right.
I mean, I just love that, right? I'm not stuck. they're helping me move with that great agility that I need.
Don't you?
With DigitalOcean, right, before I asked them to reduce my costing, right, they deducted 50% of my costing. Right?
Perfect.
So they reduced the droplet sizes to 50%.
Use like very maligned MBA word. I haven't done an MBA, but yeah, use your leverage.
Even I would like to add up the support thing. So whenever I face an issue, I just mail, and the revert back time is so fast. It's like so far the best experience with support that I've had with any cloud provider. The response is very fast.
Like talking about your thing, you would need to scale really fast, right? When you get a new client on board, it's like an avalanche of things coming in, images getting dumped and requests coming in. How do you scale fast for that? How do you designed it like that? Have you looked at your infrastructure in a way where you would be able to scale fast?
Currently, as Varun mentioned about the automation part, so we have integrated some of the automations, but it's not completely fully automated. But we are in that direction to automate stuff so that we don't have to sit manually and fire up servers and things like that.
Right. When you're building out, right, now in this particular case, you are adding a new feature. Now you need to get to market fast. Every company needs to get to market fast. And the pressure is enormous. We tend to overlook certain things, and then we get it to market, then the market loves it, and we crash and burn. How do you build fast and still scale? What are the red flags that you keep looking out for? That if I do this, it's not going to scale.
So initially, in terms of infra-wise, we try to keep it as minimal as possible, but we keep this flexibility that whenever there's a sudden demand, try to keep it as scalable as possible, but don't, from day one, we don't build for, that would be kind of counterintuitive, but I didn't meant that way. So we try to build it in a scalable fashion, but in terms of hardware, we try to keep it very minimal, and we have a culture inside our company where we try to get the version 0.1 as fast as possible.
Right.
To just try out the beta things with the customers, how it's working out, are they loving it? So if we get a positive response from like 3-4 customers and they are willing to pay for it, we try to improve upon the entire architecture of that particular thing that we built and try to improve in terms of scalability.
Interesting, because I have a very simple thumb rule. Okay. Keep it simple, like keep your code extremely simple, no database interaction, and this absolutely required. Talk to memory, don't talk to a disk. Not done. Maybe it will scale if it works.
That's exactly what we do, right? With the media industry, right? If we keep on querying the database all the time, right? Then I think we would need around 30-35 servers just for database, right? And the WordPress itself, it's a database extensive, right? So we have to keep cache servers, we have to keep multiple layers of web servers, right? DigitalOcean has moved to load balancer, right? Helps us to manage multiple caching.
Managing these different media houses with their own idiosyncrasies is an operations nightmare.
Exactly.
How do you streamline that using technology? Like, how does technology come into picture? Can you not throw bodies at it? Like, for example, there's a portfolio company which had extensive customer support team, and we brought it down really quickly using AI. Right. Does something like that help?
What we do is, right, with operational, right, once the website is live and operational, right, most of the requirements are the similar, like IPL, right, IPL is coming in, they want a scoreboard, right, scoreboards gets implemented in a different direction and gets implemented on all the website. Now there is a scaling issue that comes on one particular server, right, they don't have to scale their infrastructure, right, that will be a service that will be provided from our end, right, so when the request increases, we just have to scale our server. Right. One single server we have to scale the way we want, right? So their original infrastructure is not hampered, right? So we are developing for them in bits and pieces.
Integrating with their CMS would be another nightmare.
Not exactly. So what we have done is we are not using WordPress as the backend. WordPress backend is only used for posting, just basically story posting, right? Entire bit is developed in Laravel.
Right.
So the front end, the database connections, all the database queries, everything gets managed in Laravel. So this is the custom framework that we have designed. So any sort of implementation, we do it on any platform, right? It's very easy, right? Even if I don't have a WordPress guy coming into office, any Laravel guy can go ahead and implement it.
Interesting.
Right.
So you don't repeat yourself with every customer, every media house. That makes sense.
So we develop it in such a way that we can just put in a script, starts working.
Now with all that data coming in, security, performance would be an issue. Once Soundararajan has his water and clears his throat, maybe he would love to talk about security and performance.
You would be the best person to talk about security.
Yeah, but I don't know. It was me, is it? Okay, sorry. Yeah, I would say that security and performance is like the game changers today, right? It should be part of your DNA, man. It just reminds me of this phrase from this movie, Kung Fu Hustle. I'm not sure how many of you watched that, right? There's this famous dialogue. He says that speed determines the winner, right? So performance is so critical, right? You cannot discount it in any way. You cannot build a product and then build security or performance on top of it. It doesn't work that way at all, right? So it has to be from day one, the day you started coding, right? Every line of code has to comply, right? So you'll have to look at it. I mean, I'm using this data structure. Does it make sense, right? What are you building end of the day? So it has to percolate from there on to your entire product. It has to reflect from the bare bones of your product to your... I'm sorry.
No problem.
Yeah.
I'm making you talk a little too much. I need to focus on the other panelists.
I'm taking it stall, right? So just out of it.
Take it.
Yeah. So as I was telling, right? So what we do in our organization is that every engineer is basically put through this rigorous training of like what the complexities, right? What is it like time complexity and your space complexity? This has to be part of their DNA, man. I mean, when I actually start hiring laterals, right? I really get pissed off when I see that, I mean, they have no knowledge about like how do you optimize it, right? Like how do you write optimized code? So this has to come in from, you'll have to train them, you'll have to tell them that it has to perform, else we don't even write code. I mean, you're going to lose the day you start writing code, man, right? And security is another very critical aspect which kind of creates the trust in your customer, right? So how do you cater to security? People basically start writing a lot of code with a lot of database interactions. They don't give a single thought and like, what are the threats that could actually touch that code, right? So even before a developer can start thinking on that, right, you will have to come up with your guidelines. You'll have to come up with your, I mean, it's not like you're reinventing the wheel. This has been a concern for almost a decade. People have put together a huge list of great topics on this area, and then you'll have to just go through that and ensure that you follow these certain guidelines when you're building it. And security has to be there even again from the day you start coding. You'll have to look at SQL injections are possible or not. Are there any kind of threats, right? Is your actual module talking to other modules? The interaction, is it secured, right? You'll have to look at all aspects, right? You cannot leave a small slack in your entire development. And it has to go through, then you'll have to look at every stage of it. And that has to be driven by your backbone of your guidelines. That's pretty critical, and it has to be there. It is a game changer. And absolute focus has to be given on security and performance, is my belief.
But doesn't business compulsion factor in the go-to-market? If you make it so neat and clean to start with and spend so much time on it, wouldn't the business team and your partners be harrowing you, think, where is the money?
I would say that if you are very disciplined, that's not a problem. You are a disciplined organization. Everything sticks to, a certain degree of process. It's very difficult to actually have strong processes in place as a startup, right? It kind of holds back your entire agility and your speed. So, but I don't know, if somehow in our organization, it is like we put them through 3 months of rigorous training and they're all equipped to actually think in that direction. That has to be brought in. You cannot bring them in and then look at their code and tell it's bad. You should bring them to a spot where they're ready for it, right? Yeah.
This hygiene and discipline is an investment that is a must.
Exactly.
It is going to pay off later if you grow.
For a startup, right? Training for 3 months, right? Investing on them, right? And you don't have a guarantee that after 3 months.
I'll give you an example. I understand what you're saying, and I'll give you an example. A startup is a small company, right? That's the definition.
True.
it will grow and become a big company. Uh, when you have kids, you invest in them to teach them discipline, you invest in them to teach them how to behave, what to do, what not to do, so that it pays off later. That's exactly the same thing that happens with startups. And take that time out so that unless if you want to just sell it off really quickly, which you don't do with kids, unfortunately.
But what happens is kids don't leave us as soon as they learn things.
Right.
Right? They stay with us. You know.
You are being optimistic. No, let's give his throat a bit of a rest, and let's talk about any particular engineering challenges that you have faced, and a make or break time for your business, and how the working infrastructure, the handling the technology stack in a way which kind of salvages the business worked for you. Have you faced such a situation? Most startups have a chaos period. Yeah. Everybody hits that. Yeah. Most do not overcome it, succumb to it, but some do. Apparently you must have, because you're here.
So the biggest challenge that we faced was, like as I said, WordPress. They need a physical directory where the images get stored, right? DigitalOcean, when we chose it as an infra provider, right, they did not support spaces or anything like that, right? So at that point, what we did was we had to manually build a portion where it helped us to scale the images in such a way that it can get stored in a physical directory in a different location, which can be shared with all the different web servers, right? So if I scale, instead of 3 web servers, if let's say I have 10 or 12 web servers, right, it will directly connect to that particular storage device and pull the data out of it. Right?
If you guys want to quip in, go ahead.
So one of the main engineering challenge, especially this is from the hiring standpoint, was hiring for machine learning in India. It's been a huge challenge for us, as in like getting the right talent. So back in 2015-16, when we were trying to hire a lot for machine learning, just to speed up experiments, because at the end of the day, machine learning is the more number of experiments you run, the better understanding you have of the data, and you'll be able to generate better systems. But that was a very big challenge. So what we did was, like, we hired a couple of engineers and we trained them to perform machine learning experiments along with me and Navneet. So it seemed
you started your school.
Sorry?
You started your school.
Yeah.
Works.
In our school.
Awesome. Yeah, so I would just like to add to the previous discussion we had on performance, right? So I brought out this topic of process and discipline, right? So what happens when you start off as a startup? You are a bunch of guys and everyone knows what everyone is doing, and we are all kind of very aligned, and things are beautiful. But as you're scaling, you're adding more and more people into your team, right? There's a lot of diversity that is coming in, and slowly you start losing focus in your organization, right? So there is a lot of duplication that starts happening. Then people assume that things have been done, and everything goes chaotic, right? So how do you actually counter that? So from day one, right, as the founders of the organization, I mean, it is your vision, your dream. Set the core values of your organization, right? And put that values as the DNA of your organization. Make sure the day when someone is coming in, right, they are actually brought on track on what is needed to be done, right? So we recently hired a very nice UX engineer. I mean, I just tell him my thoughts and he comes out with beautiful stuff. I don't have to keep track of what he's doing or what's happening. So that has to be like, that micromanagement concept has to go away. So people have to be self-sustained. As your platform has to go in an autopilot mode, your teams have to be in the autopilot mode. They should know what goals they're trying to achieve. So that has to come down from your founders who basically define individual goals. All this discipline has to be brought in.
And write down those goals. Like, people don't write it down. Write down those goals. Make them visible. Exactly. Think of Moses coming down the mountain with a tablet.
Yeah.
Like, that is what you are, and the people have to follow it.
Yeah, so this is very critical for you to grow fast and be agile. The second, one more thing I want to highlight that we are facing is, we land up using a lot of open source, right, in our startups. So we don't understand what are the implications of using open source. Open source has catches, man. There are places where, I mean, there are a lot of bugs. I mean, the people all over the world, people are contributing to open source, right? And you cannot have one single process to like oversee the whole development of open source components.
You're going to start a religious war over here?
Sorry.
We are going to take questions if we can.
Yeah, I mean, this is all the burning problems that startups usually have, right?
Yeah.
Open source, like, so you should be equipped to actually, we landed up fixing a lot of open source bugs in most of the mainstream distributed platforms. So you should have that kind of mindset as well, that you should own some of that, right? Yeah.
Contribute, don't just use open source.
Exactly.
Contribute, fix bugs, report bugs, write documentation.
Yeah. So,
It is good publicity, trust me. People would want to work for you after that. You're hiring problems, get taken care of.
Yeah.
Any questions? We have a few minutes left. This is a good chance to just catch hold of them and just shoot.
My name is Monojit. I'm from a consulting company called Tech Yugadi. So my question to the panelists about the discussion around how to choose a cloud when you have so many choices like AWS and DigitalOcean, etc. So are you also seeing the adoption of a multi-cloud concept right now in organizations?
Any specific panelists you would like to address it to?
Yeah, maybe Mr. Saundar.
Sundar,
Yeah.
go for it.
So, to be frank, that's a nice question, right? So, there's so much of choices that you have, and you'll have to figure out like for which is the best suited for your business, and it makes sense for your business contingency as well to have operations on multiple clouds as well, and make your system actually operate on different clouds. And there are your services that are running on different clouds. That's a very standard scenario. Is that what you're trying to ask?
Yes.
Yep.
So are
Yeah,
you also
so that's
seeing
a-
such an adoption, especially in startups, because startups probably may or may not want to diversify so quickly. So that
No,
has to be considered.
just to pitch in, hyperconvergence as a concept is real. It's not just a buzzword. I have had things with my infrastructure is across multiple clouds and a private data center too. And that works. It is very important. If you are just on, say, the particular provider and on the East Coast and a hurricane hits it, you're dead meat. You don't want that. You don't want to lose business. You want not just data center operations across geographies, but your technology across cloud providers, depending upon which cloud provider is best suited for it.
Right.
Same thing, don't fall in love with your infrastructure provider.
Exactly.
It's not
so.
religious.
Yeah, just to add to that, right? So there are other providers who basically offer solutions which encapsulate a lot of these cloud providers. So you'll have to choose one of them, and they kind of navigate you through your entire convergence and everything. So there are solutions. So I think we should keep away from actually reinventing the wheel there and leverage what is there already.
Yep.
Right? You'll have to do a bit of research. So people have thought through the same thing that you are actually going through, and look around, and there are solutions for that as well. So yeah.
Any other questions?
So my question is this. One of the problems in a small startup, in a bootstrapped startup, is that you don't have enough money to hire different divisions. For example, when you speak of ops, when you speak of finance.
Right.
So what I would like, for example, in my company is that I would like to have somebody do that job for me, where I'd like to see the balance sheet, the profit and loss statement, what we are doing wrong, what we are doing right. So we're in a situation where we cannot we don't have the fund or the growth enough to actually hire an MBA to actually do the job for us. So did you guys go through the problem where, okay, how do I outsource it until I have the growth enough that I can actually do it in-house?
Understood.
How did you solve that problem?
Now, wearing multiple hats, doing it in-house versus doing it outside the company using external vendors, or possibly having people within the company do multiple things.
I
That's
would
the question
say leverage.
In a
man.
nutshell?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
We leverage. To be frank, right, that's not our core business. That's the same thing I would say for all the startups, right? If you want to focus on your core business, right, everything else you'll have to leverage. That's already available there.
Yep.
There are a lot of, you are a startup, right? So you want people to come to you. You want customers. Similarly, there are other startups who are offering the services that you need. You need to leverage. It's like good karma, right? You use leverage startups, so you be
it's an
leveraged.
ecosystem.
Right? Yeah. Yes, we leverage. We have a CA firm who actually take care of our entire accounting. We don't break our head in that. Even salary, payroll processing. So we found a firm who have given us good discount and they're doing it. We have kind of struck a deal with them. As we grow, we are going to increase our payments and stuff. So there are ways of actually engaging the right people to do the right job. We should leverage.
Just focus on your family jewels.
Yeah.
If your company's core is routing cabs, just route cabs. Don't do payroll. The previous talk that we had before this, use them. They are a Kalari company. We are done. Sorry. We'll continue this afterwards. Thanks.